everyone, and welcome back to the Listen Up podcast. So today, this is officially our second episode of the podcast, and I'm super excited. In my previous sort of introductory episode, I talked a little bit of sort of my journey as a hearing loss person, and so now I really want this video to sort of focus on my path from when I was first diagnosed to now, and also really just show my cochlear implant and sort of all the little different parts of it so that like everyone can sort of understand how it works and how I use it on a daily basis. And just to recap what I said in the previous episode, I'm Vivian and I was diagnosed with progressive hearing loss when I was 1.5 years old. So I'm now 16, so it's been a while. Soon after I was diagnosed, I got hearing aids and those worked up until I was around 6, which I then switched over to cochlear implants because I no longer had enough hearing left for hearing aids to amplify enough sound. So I then first got implanted on my right side when I was 7 and then on my left side when I was 8. From the time of my implantation to now, there have definitely been a lot of stages of growth for me that have sort of allowed me to get to where I am today. But even before the implantation, I was doing regular sessions of speech therapy because another thing about being hard of hearing is, of course, because you can't hear very much the sounds around you, it becomes really hard to figure out sort of different parts of speech. So for me, my personal struggle was I had a very hard time pronouncing S's and R's, and so for the longest time I would sort of pronounce them more as Z's or W's, and so even like saying my name would be a difficult task. I started speech therapy around 3 and I stopped it right around COVID because I had been having regular sessions between different speech therapists sort of over time, and right before I stopped, I would be going regularly on Saturdays for about an hour. But with COVID, of course, a lot of social distancing made it very difficult for my speech therapy sessions to happen. And now it is really crazy to see the difference in my speech from when I was a toddler to now, because my parents had taken a lot of videos of me where I was speaking, and I'll listen back to them now and just realize how much clearer and sharper my speech has gotten, which is really crazy to see, and I'm really happy that my speech has evolved so much over all of those sessions. Now, besides the speech therapy sides of things, I wanted to really get into kind of growing up in the school system and how my school day looked as a hard of hearing person. And so, of course, during the start of kind of my hearing journey, when I was still adjusting to my hearing aids and then my cochlear implants, it was difficult to kind of participate in class discussions and conversations and making sure that I was really hearing and understanding what the teacher was saying. And so when I was in elementary school, sort of a routine part of my day would be that the teacher would wear sort of a microphone or an amplifier around their neck, which had it would stream directly into my cochlear implants. And so whenever I would get a new teacher at the beginning of the year, me and my family would always talk to the teacher and sort of explain what my situation was and why I needed the microphone in the classroom. And so it made it much easier for me to sort of navigate the school year and to make sure that I was picking up on instructions. And that microphone had a mute setting and everything. And when we would have little like share and tells, and when we would go around all the people in the classroom, each kid would take the microphone with them. So that was really a nice part, I think, because all of my teachers were really understanding and they used the microphone well, and so I think that was really helpful for me when I was younger. And then starting in 4th grade, I sort of updated to a system where there was still the microphone around the teacher's neck, but not only would it stream directly into my ear, it would also connect to this tall sort of speaker in the corner of the classroom, so the sound would sort of be amplified everywhere, which was really helpful for me, but honestly for other non-hard of hearing kids too, because even people that have typical hearing have a hard time understanding what teachers are saying. Then after elementary school, so after 5th grade, I switched over to a smaller school. So I went from like 30 kids in the classroom to half the size, 15. And so I still use my microphone for a good amount of time, but then after that I found that I didn't necessarily need it anymore because there was not as much background noise and classroom sizes were smaller, there weren't as many people talking, and so it was kind of a much better situation, and I felt that I didn't necessarily need the microphone anymore. However, right when I transitioned schools, that is when COVID hit. So I think a lot of hard of hearing people and deaf people can agree with me when I say that COVID was a really difficult time in terms of my hearing journey, especially with social distancing, always being at least 6 feet apart from each other, and having masks covering other people's faces. And so I transitioned to a new school where I didn't know anyone there, and everyone was wearing masks. People were far apart from each other, and a lot of my kind of daily routine would be that when I would be talking to someone, I would always be looking at their lips, because from a young age I learned how to read lips, and that was kind of how I participated in conversations, and I still do look at people's mouths when they're talking, so that I kind of connect the sound to the motion of the mouth, and it's just really helpful for me in conversations. So during COVID, it was really difficult to have people's mouths covered, along with the mask muffling the sound and also just the distance between people. It was a difficult time in class, and it was definitely a difficult time socially with kind of trying to make friends, because so often I just could not hear other people. And so it was a very challenging time, but we got through it. But at that point in COVID was really a very important time for the microphone for me. So I was super thankful that I had that with me, and that the people around me and my teachers were very supportive and very understanding when I couldn't hear what they were saying or I needed instructions to be repeated. They were all very welcoming and encouraging, and so I think that made the transition and sort of the struggles kind of easier for me, because COVID was very difficult. However, now COVID is many years behind, and we are now sort of back to the regular schooling, so I don't have any difficulty being in the classroom without the microphone and kind of listening to the students around me and also what the teachers are saying. And I think I find something that helps me a lot in the classroom is just whenever it's the start of a new year and I kind of have to introduce myself to the teachers, I always make sure that they know that I'm hard of hearing and that they project their voices, and that in discussions, teachers tend to kind of repeat what another student asked just to make sure that everyone heard. And of course, when videos are being played in classes, that the captions are always on, because I think that's kind of a big thing for me when videos are being played, whether it's in the classroom or I'm watching a movie or so. Captions need to be on, because although I can understand without the captions, it's a significantly more amount of work to be able to understand, and I have to focus so much harder to make sure that I'm actually recognizing the words that are being said, so captions are a big help. And also currently all of my friends are super helpful and encouraging about my hearing loss, so they are of course all aware of it, and in any situation where my batteries have died or I don't have my cochlear implants on, they really know how to navigate. Like for example, if we're at the beach and my cochlear implants aren't waterproof, so I take them off before I go in any sort of water, and they're always kind of signaling to me and making sure that I know what's going on, and so it's very helpful, and they're also very supportive. Now that was a bit about me and my hearing journey and kind of the obstacles that I had to overcome. And now I'm really excited to sort of get into my cochlear implant and what it looks like and how it functions. So I'm going to get right to that. Now this is just how it sits on my head. It goes right behind my ear, and I personally don't have ear molds. I used to when I was younger, but I think around 4th grade I just switched to not wearing ear molds because I like not having like stuff in my ears. But anyway, it just sits right behind, and the magnet goes right on top. At school and just daily, most of the time I have them under my hair. However, if for example I'm doing sports, I'll normally have them over my hair. It doesn't really make much of a difference, but it's just my personal preference. And so now here it is off. You can see that there's this flashing light here and also flashing light here. So whenever it's flashing green here, I know that the battery is working and that the processor is on, as well as when it's blinking here. And so here is that's the light right there. And then the microphones are right up on top here. So sort of a fun fact, whenever I have them on my ears, if something's brushing against here, like for example my hair, I can hear it. So that's sort of where all the sound filters through. So I always try and make sure that there's no blockages or anything sitting on top of it or anything like that. And here's just the hook that helps it sit around my ear, and I think this is technically a hook for an ear mold, so it still has the little ridges so that the ear mold can attach. But then moving here, we have the wire, which connects to the main processor part, and then also connects to the coil and the coil cover and magnet. So this is the DL coil here. And then this is the coil cover, and this is the coil base part. Now I can kind of take all this apart, but if I were to remove this, the magnet is sitting right inside here, so it actually stays on my head because in cochlear implant surgery, you get an electrode inserted under your skin. And then here, when I open up, the processor turns off. So it's only on when this case is actually over. However, if you have it off your ear, even with this for an extended amount of time, it automatically turns off by itself so that it conserves battery. But we take this off, and this here is my battery. The cochlear implants have both rechargeable and kind of single-use batteries. This is a regular size. So this is the MEDEL Sonnet 1. This is the regular size, which is rechargeable, and it lasts for me up to, I'd say, 10 to 12 hours. And then here is just where the battery inserts. So I can just quickly click it in. And then that goes to the main control system. And so every night when I go to bed, I have this thing called a drying system, which it's a warming system, and it kind of circulates air so that any excess moisture that is in your cochlear implants gets dried out, which is really helpful, especially when I play sports, because especially with sweat, moisture can kind of build up, and so I always make sure to leave it in there every night. And I was explaining the control system. So what the control system is that when you go to an audiologist, you get a programming or a map, which is basically the different controls and sort of tweaks that the audiologist makes so that your hearing is amplified and that you can sort of filter out sound as best you can and amplify sounds enough so that you can hear them. So that is kind of what's programmed in here. And so whenever I feel that I need a new mapping or something just isn't sounding right, there's kind of routinely checkups and such where I go to the audiologist and I get another audiogram and a new program if I need it. Wherever I go, I always have extra batteries on hand in case these implants run out. Like I said, these standard batteries last 10 to 12 hours for me. There are the mini size, which last 3 hours and up. And over time, the batteries, the amount of time that they last lessens. They honestly last a very long time. I've only replaced, in the almost 10 years I've had them, I've replaced them once, the batteries. And I just bring a little pack of batteries with me to school just in case. And so that's kind of my schedule. And then I never sleep with them on. So every night I just put it in the drying machine and I go to bed. So that's kind of a nice little thing that I don't have to hear any noise when I'm sleeping. Like if for example, there's construction outside in the morning, or if there are a lot of cars going by at night, I don't hear it. So cool advantage that I have. Anyway, that was sort of a get to know me and my hearing journey, and also to discover the parts of my MEDEL Sonnet cochlear implant. And I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time.